What's up, Coach?
What's up, pal?
To get started, I think it's smart to kind of give us a little bit of background on yourself, where you started, your playing career, your coaching career, kind of where you're at now, where you want to go, and then we'll pick it up from there and just kind of get into everything.
Absolutely, and I think first off, I'd like to thank the Firecracker organization for taking the time to come out here. I think it's obviously a great chance to get some exposure, and obviously any kind of exposure during this process is a huge benefit. You know, about me, I grew up in a kind of a baseball family. You know, my dad's been coaching for 40 plus years now over at Tufts, but we kind of grew up around the game, and it was something that we've always played, starting in the backyard when we were younger with wiffle ball, going to Tufts games, going to Red Sox games, all that kind of stuff. We're kind of that athletic family, 4 boys, so it was constant competition all around. I was a Milford High School kid, played infield there, shortstop there. The recruiting process is a little different back then. I don't want to date myself, but it was much more of a Legion ball, local type experience than it was what it is today with the travel ball and the tournaments and being able to get outside the region and all that kind of stuff. But I was fortunate enough to be able to get a couple offers, and then I think the opportunity presented itself. And you know, right off the get-go, I wasn't set. I loved the place at Tufts. I had grew up around it, but obviously there was that side of me that kind of wanted to branch out on my own. And I think, you know, the opportunity to turn baseball into a great education and use it as a ticket to get into a great school like that, I kind of woke up and was like, you know, you can go out and get an education that's pretty good. That, you know, your grades might not necessarily show that you deserve it, but baseball is going to help you get into that school and get some support. So I look back at it, obviously one of the best decisions I've ever made. I think I was able to establish some great relationships, play for a guy that, you know, obviously was my dad, but it was a guy that had been established in college baseball and had been around, and traditionally a very successful program. Out of school, I was lucky enough right away that summer to hitch on with Coach Pine at Daniel Webster College, which is no longer around. But I think that was a great experience in that it got me on my own a little bit. He was a very good guy to work for in that he gave me the flexibility and the trust to do a lot of the stuff with the offense up there. I think there was a lot of trial and error as a young coach, but I think that's the best way to learn, is to go out and fail a lot. And then you learn from your failures more than you learn from your successes. So I was there for about 3 years. It was quite the experience. It was a different Division III experience than I had at Tufts. I mean, you're talking about a high academic school with a ton of resources and a ton of alumni support, to a program we took over where the most wins they had in school history was 7. And I always look back at those years that I had at Daniel Webster with Coach Pine, and a lot of those years and the struggles we went through has allowed me to stay humble kind of as I've gone on to different positions. Shortly after that, I took over as the assistant and recruiting coordinator at Tufts University. I spent, I believe, 2.5 years there. And then I was given a call by Coach Mike Lavin over at Northeastern to come interview for the assistant position over there. And eventually I found myself going to Northeastern that winter. I spent 3 full seasons there. Unbelievable experience, another great guy to work for. Obviously, the professional background side of things, and kind of the pro approach was really what I learned a lot there. And same thing, kind of a guy that puts faith and trust in his assistants, allows them to go out there and do their job, not necessarily look over their shoulder. And it was great. And I think, you know, some of our strengths we have now here from a player development side were developed through those 2 to 3 years that we were there. You know, we're talking about kids coming to school and being on scholarship to try to develop and get to the next level, the pro level. So it's a lot more individualized attention that you're giving guys there. Our last game was actually, my last game with those guys was down at NC State in a regional. Quite an experience for all of us. The team was an awesome team. Loved those guys. That summer, I remember I was out on the road recruiting. I got a couple calls about the position down here with Coach LaRose retiring. And I thought I'd come down here and check it out. And I think when I got down here a little bit, I saw the facilities. I got to meet with some people. I saw how important and competitive it was down here, that athletics wasn't just like an extracurricular thing as it is at some places. That, you know, winning and losing is important here, but it's about also doing it the right way. And I thought it was a mutual fit. And you know, I'm very glad, because during that process, it was kind of a summer job interview. I didn't really get to meet a lot of the guys yet. And obviously that fall, I was anxious after accepting the job to meet some of those guys, and the things I've heard from them and getting the opportunity to build the relationships with them through those first couple months was unbelievable. But it was an easier transition than I thought. I thought I came here and I found a team of guys that worked hard, knew that they were close to it, and kind of accepted our new style with open arms, with the hopes to try to get it to the next level here. And that's ultimately our goal. I think, facility-wise and all that stuff here, man, this place has got some special stuff here. And I think in a lot of ways, it's a sleeping giant. I mean, I'm as guilty as anyone. When I heard the name Johnson & Wales, I thought it was a campus of chefs.
From a program standpoint, a baseball standpoint, what, in your opinion, sets your program apart from others? And why would a player that is looking at the school choose this school over another school, say in our conference or our school nearby within the state or something similar?
Absolutely. I think the recruiting process is an interesting process, and myself, obviously, this being my fourth stop at two different levels. I think, the typical 17, 18-year-old kid during that time, especially with a spring sport, a lot of the times it's, where am I wanted the most? And I think it's, recruiting's always kind of looked at as a one-way street versus, there's two sides of it, right? I think from a coaching standpoint, we're looking for the right fit. We're looking for the type of kid that we feel we have the best success developing. But I also think, the other side of it is the kid needs to do the research and he needs to find a place that's going to help him get to. I've been around some guys that have all the talent in the world, have been draft picks, have not been draft picks, and I think ultimately at some point in your life you're going to have to fall back on that degree that you get and the opportunities of the school that you attend. So, when we're looking at players, there's obviously a bunch of stuff that we're looking for. And I think my biggest thing is that we're hoping that it's reciprocal on the other side, that kids are going out there, they're seeing other places, they're meeting with other coaches, and they're starting to figure out what they want. I know I always talk about at the end when we're talking about making an offer and stuff like that, we're not the type of school that's going to throw deadlines on them. I don't think that's part of the process. I think this decision impacts their side a lot more than it impacts me. I hope it impacts me for 4 years positively, and it leads to a relationship that lasts a lifetime.
Absolutely.
But ultimately, it's got to be a place that's going to help that kid get to a level of success that he wants to get to and help him reach his childhood dreams, wherever that is, whether it's on the baseball field or if it's in the real world.
Right.
So I think it's that two-sided street that sometimes gets a little fogged, and I was that same guy. I was that guy that was kind of just waiting by the phone after a game saying, hey, who's calling tonight? I'll go check that place out. And I don't think I did enough research early on. And then as you get through the process and you start to see some places, you start to see stuff you like. I think a big part of it is going out there and seeing the school in the sticks. We're a school in the city, right? I think we're a little bit of a unique city school in that we have two separate campuses that are about 5 minutes apart. But when you're out on this side of campus, I mean, you feel like you're not in the city. You feel like you're right on the water, and that's a great atmosphere. It's a lot more quiet.
So you see that split campus is kind of a
and you go downtown,
you got
a little bit more city life, right?
To be able to get away from the field, get away from the city, that busyness, kind of come down to the field, chill out with the guys, everything like that. So that's a big separator for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So with that, when you guys are recruiting, when you guys are looking for kids, there's obviously something that sticks out to you as a player based on your program's beliefs and everything like that. So if you can, just try to give us 3 specific things that, as a coach, you go out there, you're looking at one kid, you might see another kid that is doing these 3 things that separates him from the kid you're looking at and everyone else. So if, as a program, everything like that, your guys' values, everything you look for in a player, the talent-wise, everything like that, just try to narrow 3 things down that specifically you'd want to see out of a player based on our program and on our beliefs and everything like that.
I mean, the first one, I think it's going to kind of cover everything is just from a talent standpoint, whether it's a talent, tools, physicality, body, athleticism. I think I try to group that all up in one, but that's not the ultimate decision factor, right? I think it's a different level of baseball than high school baseball, right? So you got to be able to handle it. You got to be able to show some skills that we can build upon. I don't think by any means they need to be a finished product. They shouldn't be a finished product. They're 17 and 18-year-old kids, right? There's a lot of growth to happen. I think you have the kids that grow early, the kids that are going through their development in 8th and 9th grade, as well as the kids that are going through their development 3 or 4 years later. We've had several kids that coming out of high school, and I don't think they've picked up a razor to shave yet, right? So it's kind of understanding where they are in the timeline of growth, but talent obviously plays a big factor in it. I think one of the things that we try to do as a coaching staff is we try to see kids multiple times. I always talk to Coach Jay about I want to see the kid succeed, but I also want to see him fail. And I think there's a lot you can learn about a kid, especially in today's day and age, how they deal with failure. And do they keep coming? Are they continuing to be a good teammate? Or do they kind of get, self-absorbed and kind of hang their head, throw the helmet in the dugout? That just doesn't work in our program. It might work somewhere else, and that's fine. But for us, that's just not the best match on that end. And then I think the last thing is a character thing. We're trying to achieve high character guys. I think we have a lot of success when we have guys that understand the importance of character. And I think there's various ways to find that out. I think from an academic standpoint, that shows a lot. I mean, I'll be one of the first to say I wasn't a big fan of school. But, as you grow up and you get older, there's going to be a lot of things in life that you got to do that you're not a huge fan of. And I think that's what character is, kind of doing the things you need to do that you don't necessarily always want to do, right? And I think that blends well when you're talking about having 35 guys in the dugout. I mean, if we got 35 guys that have their own agendas, it's going to be really, really tough to have any success on that standpoint. On recruit visits, we look how they interact with their parents. Do they hold their door for mom? I think that's a big show of character or not, right? That's a little bit of the old school and the way I was raised is that's that politeness. And do they interrupt or do they let them continue and then answer? And I think that's kind of a big part. But that's kind of the, in a way to sum it up a little bit, kind of what we look for in a recruit.
Right. In your opinion as a coach, first of all, how has recruiting changed from, like you said, from when you were recruiting to now in the social media aspect? How has the pandemic affected recruiting? And how have you guys adjusted from that? From the change of raw, just going to the field every day, to now there's all this flood of social media. How do you weed through that as a coach?
Right. I'm going to date myself a little bit, but I remember when I went on my college visits, it was the first time I ever learned about this thing called Facebook. It had just came out, and you needed a school email to get on it, and you didn't have access if you didn't. And obviously, you see where it's come now with the social media between Twitter, Instagram, some of the other video stuff, even YouTube. Be able to load up your own video. I think it's allowed players to take more ownership in the recruiting process, right? I don't think there's any more excuses for them not to generate some kind of exposure because you can do it on your own, right? You can post video up there and it's out there for everyone to see. You as a player can go on and you can follow all these universities and learn more and get kind of a background look at what the programs look like. We try to advertise on our social medias. We try to show what we're all about here because I think that's where the audience is now, right? I think everyone's got a phone that has social media. That's where the audience is on that. So that's largely where it plays. I think it's a great source for us, like I mentioned earlier. Hey, man, I really like this arm. Does he have any video? Chances are you can check out the social media pages to do that. I think you can learn a lot about a kid by looking at his social media, right?
And with that, as you guys look through recruiting and stuff, is there anything that's like a definite no? Like you definitely check the kid off the list if you see something on his social media? Is there something that you love to see on his social media? And if a kid could have a perfect social media profile for you to help him get recruited and also just understand that he's a good kid, what does that look like to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's social media. I'm not one of those guys. I think I'm not a huge social media guy, partially because I don't really know a whole lot. I think this past year I had a son and I decided to get Instagram for the first time. I'm still trying to figure it out, but it was largely so that my family could see pictures of him. But I think, when I'm looking at kids' pages, I obviously if that kid's going to be a representation of our program, I'm hoping that I'm not looking at some awful stuff on that stuff, right? I think it's their pages to do what they feel. But obviously, as an athlete, you're in a little bit of a brighter spotlight. You need to be a little bit smarter with it, right? On that side of things. I think from a video standpoint, it depends on coaches, right? I think pitching's a little bit easier because you can kind of throw the stuff out there and do your video work. I think from a hitting standpoint, I want to see some BP and I want to see some work like that and the opportunity to see some in-game action, right? I think the ultimate piece and the toughest piece largely from this pandemic stuff has been the competitive side of things, right? Can a kid compete? I can see a kid go out and hit 96 off the tee, exit velocity, right? I can see him take a really clean round of BP. That gets me excited. But does the game speed up all of a sudden now when he gets in the batter's box? And that's the stuff we want to see, right? Like when he goes 0 for 2, what's that third at bat look like? I don't see that necessarily in a BP setting, okay? And that tells a lot of a difference. We got a roster of 35. Some years we're looking for 6 guys. Some years we're looking for 15. And if those years we're looking for 6, obviously we're a little bit more patient. We're a little bit more narrow on it. So it's that side of it that we try to use as another extra resource to say, hey, you know, if I got a kid from California, I might not be able to get out to California to see him, right? So I need to be able to use social media to connect not only with him, but also to connect with his coaches, connect with his summer coaches, send them a DM, say, hey, you know, what do you got on this kid? Can you share your contact info with us? I think Coach Jay does an unbelievable job. He's the younger guy. I kind of put him in charge of all that social media stuff to kind of get it. And, you know, ultimately, I trust him. You know, I want him to go out and find the guys that he thinks are going to help us out. And then we sort out and we start to make decisions to say, hey, who's going to be the best fit for us? And then obviously they got to make sure it's the best fit on the other side for them.
Yeah,
so
perfect.
That's largely where we look.
Yeah. The first question I have is, what does Firecracker do, in your opinion, to help coaches kind of bridge the gap for recruiting? We have a lot of different services. We have a lot of different facets of our business. So for you, where have you seen value from Firecracker from a recruiting standpoint, and also as just a youth kind of event that is a little unique?
It's funny. I laugh sometimes because I remember when Cookie first got it going. I was actually, this was years ago when I first started coaching. I was fortunate enough to get a summer job with the summer team, the New England Roughnecks, and we always played in the 4th of July tournament around Providence, and it wasn't as big as it was today. And I remember it was a lot of Legion clubs and a kind of a mix of the summer and travel, and I always thought that was an interesting little mesh to be able to go do that, and I think he's done obviously an unbelievable job growing the product. I think now when I look at Firecracker, it has come a long way. I think there's a lot more of an establishment online. I think one of the greatest strengths as a coach or an outsider looking in is their ability to connect the kids with the coaches, in both, vice versa, right? I mean, you're looking at the ability to go out there and perform in a showcase and then perform in a tournament. And during that time, you're going to have the ability to interact with some coaches. Another thing that I love about the Firecracker is the facilities they use. They're going on and they're playing on college campuses. I know that we host a couple Firecracker events. There's nothing better as a college coach to have the events on your campus. It gives you the ability to showcase what you got while you're sitting there and watching those guys. And I think that's a greatest strength. And then the last piece is obviously where you guys are going with the social media stuff. I think, you know, the world is trending in that direction. I mean, I go on Twitter every night, and it's a Twitter feed loaded of all kinds of video, all kind of metrics, and all kind of that. And with your player database and the growth of that, I think that helps out the kids. And, you know, I think there are some people out there that are charging big bucks for it. And it's nice to see certain organizations be able to not have to make baseball just a rich sport, to be able to connect with inner city kids and get them the chances to go out there and play baseball in front of college coaches. I mean, there's some guys that I've coached in the past that this has been their ticket to somewhere else. And I think that's a huge part of it. And that's where my biggest fear was sometimes I worry about baseball trending too much into a business and getting away from what it used to be. And it used to be the growth in the game came from pickup baseball, playing wiffle ball on the beach, having fun, and not this consistent pressure of, I need to be recruited. Man, you're 14 years old. You should be caring about winning the game and going to get some post ice cream.
We really try to focus on it's a baseball side of things. We really want to focus on it's baseball purity. Yes, all the coaches are there, the showcases are there, but at the core of it, we really try to make sure it's baseball at the core.
Right, and I think that's, like I said, I think the flexibility that you have to say, hey, I can go showcase my tools on a Thursday night, and then I'm showing up Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I'm going out there to win games with my team. I think that's a unique experience, and I don't think that is somewhere else. Usually you see one piece or the other piece.
Right. Exactly.
And I think that's a huge benefit, no doubt.
Right. So with that, obviously we have all those tools for recruitment for coaches and connecting the players and the coaches. How many players have you personally seen from Firecracker, contacted from Firecracker, maybe been reached out to from Firecracker? If there are any, maybe you have some names in mind or just have a number off the top of your head.
I mean, it's definitely been a couple. And you know, we talk about it in the office. I think, you know, we don't fall in the trap necessarily of recruiting the event, right? We're recruiting the player. And if the player's going to this event, then that's an event that we want to go at. Now, I will know that you start to see these events that start to attract certain teams or certain players, and those kind of become, hey, man, this is on our calendar every year. This is something we got to cover. This is something we got to go check out. Right. I think the other way we use Firecracker is I know he's done a good job expanding it. And now it's getting into PA. Now it's getting up into Maine, and it's branching out of, kind of the central New England locations and starting to grow into New England and into the Mid-Atlantic. That's huge for us. The opportunity to go somewhere, sit out a field for 4 days, see kids from in-region, see kids from out of region, that's a huge benefit on that end. From a recruiting and player standpoint, I'm sure there's some guys on our roster that have definitely played in games. I know there's a left-handed freshman on our roster that pitched at our field that we were able to see. I know there's several kids that we've recruited out of those events. It's just like any other event. And that's, like I said, it's ultimately, we're in the business of going out and getting players. And wherever they're playing, we got to go out there and make sure we're getting our exposure on them and we're getting a good look on them.
Right. Just out of curiosity, do you and your coaches kind of use Firecracker as a tool to kind of say, hey, like I found this kid on Firecracker? And then also on top of that, in the coaching community, what's kind of the reputation of Firecracker as a recruiting tool, as a tournament company, and also obviously just as a company in general? Like, do we operate things well? Do we do things the right way among your network and who you talk to through your coaching network in general?
Yeah, so. Absolutely. So to answer kind of your first question, I think the one thing that it provides us is, me as the head coach, I can't be everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. Coach Johnson as our recruiting coordinator, he can't be at two places at the same time. So it gives us the ability that he doesn't necessarily have to worry about whipping out his video camera all the time, right? He could tell me, hey, I like these guys, and now I have something to go look at to be able to see them and then see if we need to go out and see them again. So I think that's good. I think, the relationship we've had with Cook, obviously him stopping by as our pitching coach here before I got here, and then obviously with them still hosting events here, it's been nothing but first class. I think they do an unbelievable job. It's one of those things, it's nice as a head coach to know that they're going to come in, rent our fields, but we're not going to be going in the dugouts and picking up water bottles or cleaning up trash. That it's a well-run event. It attracts the right teams and the right guys, and it's a well-oiled machine that's got it rolling and got it cooking. And I think he does an unbelievable job with that from that standpoint. And that it's something that I hope our relationship continues, and I hope we continue to build on it. And possibly get more events in here as he continues to grow and do things. But, reputation-wise, I think it's like I said. I mean, all you got to do is just go to a game, right? Go to a showcase night. I think you're going to see college coaches from all different levels there. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a sign of a good event, right? I think you're going to get good players there. That's a sign of a good event. I don't think there's a national database out there ranking events, right? But I think, if the coaches are showing up and it's giving kids the opportunity to go play in front of 50, 60, 70, or 100 coaches, man, that's a pretty good event. That's a pretty good bang for your buck to get that exposure instead of the old days where it's like, man, you hope one or two guys show up, you know? And I think that's where recruiting has changed, is that there's a lot more exposure for these kids without necessarily having to go too far, but they also do have the opportunity to travel a little bit further if they want to, or that's what their team decides. No, I don't think your questions are what you're trying to get out of them, what your audience is looking to get from it, and I think you have a good audience, right? Like you're doing a great job in what you guys are doing. It's been awesome, and I'm not kidding, man. I remember playing the championship game. We played Springfield. I'll never forget. We ended up winning that game, and it was great, and it was a small tournament, and we left, and I remember my boss was like, what'd you think of that? It was our first time. It was the first time they ran it. From what it was to what it's grown into, it's unbelievable. And the amount of time that it's been awesome. And like I said, it looks like you guys are continuing to grow on that end, which is obviously awesome to see.